From the headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Emike Omoli. Welcome. We begin in Argentina, where the currency has continued to plummet. This is despite a dramatic move by the central bank to raise interest rates to 60%. The peso lost another fifth of its value on Thursday. The latest collapse came after President Mauricio Macri asked the IMF to speed up payments on its $50 billion bailout loan. The fund says it's considering the request. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, has the details.
Saludos en estudio, saludos a toda la audiencia de Telesur.
Another critical day in Argentina as the dollar again shot up and reached 42 pesos. Remember that on Wednesday, President Mauricio Macri issued a recorded message with the intention of bringing confidence and tranquility to the markets, announcing that the International Monetary Fund would advance funds to comply with the financial programs of 2019. After that announcement, the dollar went up 34 pesos and 50 cents, 7.5% higher. Today, it reached 42 pesos. The Minister of Finances announced that next Monday, new economic measures would be announced and that he would travel to the United States to meet the International Monetary Fund to reach an agreement. That is the same agreement which President Macri on Thursday said had already been agreed to, only for his own ministers to come out and clarify that it is actually an intended agreement on the part of the national government. Back to you in the studio.
Sabrina Roth reporting there. Now, it's thought the IMF could demand swifter cuts in spending as a condition for releasing its funds early. On Thursday evening, thousands of teachers, workers and students from Argentina's public universities protested against the government's austerity measures.
Members of over 57 public universities are demanding a decent wage increase as they march against the budget crisis. After a 72-hour strike, protesters gathered outside the National Congress.
There is no state policy in place for public education. In a meeting addressing higher education and honouring 100 years of university reform, public education was, again, declared a universal human right and a state obligation. The state must support public education from primary school up to university.
Some of the demands are inflation-based salary increases, regularization of hired teachers and ad honorem teachers, a teachers training fund, and increased public university budget.
People are protesting against the crisis being faced by the science and technology as well as university sectors. Today, specifically, is the crisis of the National University, which is reflected in teachers' salary cuts, which the government aim to slash by 15%.
Since February, teachers are refusing to accept insecure agreements made during negotiations with the provincial and national governments.
Students are spreading the strikes and discussing the continuation of the demonstrations. They are in a major disagreement with the government. A government that continues with meetings but without hearing the general complaints. A government that does not give answers and says the only possibility is to make cuts, which will lead to the closing of the public university.
Mauricio Macri's government is plunging into a deep crisis and does not want to accept it. Supposedly in the next few hours, the unions will meet with the Education Minister Alejandro Finocchiaro, but the unions are not optimistic that their complaints will be heard.
Thursday was the International Day for the Victims of Forced Disappearances. The day was established by the UN General Assembly in 2010. It had been championed by the Latin American Federation of Associations for the Relatives of the Disappeared or Detained. To mark the day, civil rights groups, activists, families of victims and people from around the world demonstrated. A series of protests took place in Mexico to demand action by the state to find loved ones.
Magdalena Hernandez has spent the last 4 years looking for her son. She's one of the thousands of mothers that have suffered the atrocity of disappearance. a growing problem in Mexico.
I'm asking for help to find our relatives, that people find their human side and don't think there are a lot of uninterested people because they are not going through this situation.
At events like this, families of the victims strive to keep alive the memory of those who have been disappeared by the state or private forces. The lack of action from authorities in most of states has led to people setting up civil society groups to search for those who have disappeared.
For 3 years now, I have found along the way thousands of families that are living the same situation, and everybody is at risk.
This problem has existed in the country for a long time. Manuel Ramirez has been looking for his daughter for over 14 years. With the arrival of the new government, he hopes the situation will really change.
I am very hopeful that things will change with the new government, that the wait is over. If not, we will continue to speak out with our demands.
Official figures show that more than 37,000 people are missing in Mexico. However, non-governmental organizations say there might be twice that number. The families have even gone searching for the remains of their loved ones in the more of 1,500 clandestine graves uncovered across the country over the last 10 years.
Meanwhile, in Colombia, relatives of the disappeared say that 90% of their cases go unresolved and unpunished. They say successive right-wing governments have been complicit in the tens of thousands of disappearances in the country.
Colombia's Institute of Legal Medicine published a report to mark the International Day for the Victims of Enforced Disappearances. The director said that between 2010 and 2011, there was an increase in the number of forced disappearances. At the time, the leader of the right, Álvaro Uribe, was president.
This phenomenon of disappearances in Colombia in the last 10 years saw an increase in 2010 and 2011. Since then, the numbers have declined.
In the last 10 years, 73,000 disappearances have been recorded. But the problem goes back further. Andrea Torres is marking 31 years since one of her family disappeared in the attack on the Palace of Justice.
The perfect crime, one that leaves no footprint and does not awaken any political will on the part of the institutions which should be investigating it.
Luz Maria Contreras lost her husband and says that, like him, there are many leaders who have disappeared as the state seeks to destroy the opposition.
My case is like many others. Disappearance has been a political tactic to finish off the opposition in this country. All of these cases are politically motivated.
That is why the victims supported the peace process and welcomed the creation of the Commission of Truth, Justice and Reparations, with its unit to search for missing people.
The commission was set up, but so far it hasn't begun to work because the state says there are no resources for it to start working. But for the victims, it represents a hope.
What the families of the disappeared want now is more commitment from the government to clarify what happened to their loved ones and who was responsible.
Well, Brazilians are marking the day by visiting the Sao Paulo Memorial for those who disappeared during the military dictatorship. The memorial is set on what used to be the Department of Political and Social Order, where victims were held. According to a special commission, 1,200 people were tortured, murdered, or disappeared in Brazil during that time. Opposition supporters in Honduras have taken to the streets to demand the resignation of President Juan Orlando Hernandez. Several groups joined the march from the National University. They blame Hernandez for the worsening poverty in Honduras. They say his re-election earlier this year was illegal. They are demanding justice for those killed in the protests that followed.
The re-election is a clear violation of the Constitution of the Republic, and what they did to repress the protests against the re-election and the fraud was a crime against humanity.
Ecuadorian police have clashed with protesters at a march to promote the rights of immigrants. The march is in opposition to a nationalist group protesting against Venezuelan migrants. The police moved in to separate the two groups, but then turned on the anti-fascist demonstrators, blocking their path and firing tear gas.
The country is completely disorganized. You can find 4 separate groups protesting against an unstable government. A government that has no clear position to mediate and to create unity in the country. It is very worrying because from here we can see that Latin America must rise again. From Ecuador, things must change radically. We can see political dinosaurs engaging in fascism and extreme capitalism, and the people is rising against it.
We'll be back in a few moments after this short break.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Telesur is getting ready to distribute its signal on the African continent. Our English language channel will be available in 25 countries. It's another step towards our aim of connecting the global south.
As night falls over the American continent, Telesur's signal will already be rising across the African continent. Cultures, knowledge, debunking the myths of Mother Africa. From there, we will be telling new stories. We want to be a platform for the voices of the African peoples.
We are about to witness the joining of two continents. Our histories have been intricately intertwined. This is the union of two vastly different types of people, but also with striking likenesses. A people who share the same dreams for the future and who struggle for a better world. This connection has become a reality today as we extend our TV signal, and the name of that signal is Telesur.
The north of Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, Eastern and Southern Africa. We will be there, bridging the gap.
South Africa is a contested space. It's a space where we've got a free market economy. It's a place where we've had a beautiful reconciliation period, but it's also a place full of contradictions. It is the birthplace of Nelson Mandela, and it is connected in a very, very deep way with the solidarity movements of Latin America.
All the resources of Telesur at its central headquarters in Caracas and in Quito are ready.
So today, Telesur begins its broadcast in Africa, 25 countries in the continent, and we're connecting the global south. I think it's an amazing opportunity. The idea that there's two peoples around the world, one in Latin America and one in Africa, that are so far away, but that still have so many things in common, and the opportunity to have a channel that can actually connect those two, it's just an amazing opportunity.
Our ally in Africa is the production company Moja Media,
where we enter a new era in the media environment in Africa, because Moja Media wants to create a disruptive media environment where we can change the narrative of the current Western focus and multinational focus on the news media and stranglehold of the narrative coming to Africa.
a part of America in the heart of Africa. Telesur, connecting the global south.
Well, staying on the African continent, the head of Nigeria's Senate, Bukola Saraki, has announced he will run in February's presidential elections. That makes him the highest profile contender to the incumbent, Muhammadu Buhari. Saraki quit Buhari's All Progressives Congress, or APC, and returned to his old party, the PDP. He is Nigeria's third most senior politician. His challenge raises the pressure on Buhari, changing the electoral game in the country.
I hereby announce my intention to run for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the elections of 2019 on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. I do this with a firm conviction that I have the good case to secure inclusive growth for Nigeria and Nigerians.
Hundreds of migrants have been evacuated from detention centres in Libya after getting caught in clashes. The UN moved them from the facility near Tripoli to an undisclosed location. Their guards had abandoned them after fighting between rival groups reached their area. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has arrived in Ghana to discuss investment and migration in West Africa. This is the second stop of her Africa tour, which started in Senegal. She's expected to focus talks on migration because thousands leave Ghana and head for Europe every year. Merkel is joined by several German CEOs to also focus on boosting business relationships.
We have to be able to also address the root causes of how come these insurgencies have been able to take root in our areas. And that is the whole business of economic growth, the training of our youth, the acquisition of skills, and the creation of opportunities that would allow people to have a more positive engagement with life, rather than throwing bombs and maiming and destroying people.
Ghana received the best evaluation from Reporters Without Borders in regards to press freedom. It has gone through 3 peaceful transfers of power. Corruption, much can be still improved. One of the reasons why Compact with Africa makes sure that tax processes are transparent through digitalization also applies to foreign companies trying to evade tax. Overall, Ghana is one of the leaders of democratic development in Africa. Ghana and Germany share same values and principles.
Deutschland gleiche Werte und gleiche Prinzipien.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and the presidents of Sierra Leone, Maada Bio, have agreed to work more together. Bio is in China to attend the summit on China-Africa cooperation and sign various agreements. President Xi said that developing solidarity with African countries is an important pillar of China's foreign policy. China has also pledged to further strengthen military partnership with African countries. A spokesperson from the Chinese Ministry of National Defense stressed the importance of military ties with its African partners. He made the comments at a press conference ahead of the Beijing summit mentioned earlier. It will be held on September 3rd and 4th.
Looking ahead, China will continue to help Africa to enhance its security capacity, building independently, promote cooperation in multiple aspects, including personal training, logistics equipment, maritime escorts, peacekeeping operations, healthcare and humanitarian assistance, strive to usher in a new era for bilateral military ties, and make positive contributions to maintaining peace and security of Africa and the world at large.
A Kenyan artist is turning junk into art. Ivan Naguri's home in Nairobi doubles up as a workshop. There he makes art from garbage. The 29-year-old junk artist collects items at dumps, but friends and neighbors also bring him trash. His work represents the need for recycling and the protection of the environment. Some of his pieces sell for hundreds of dollars. We'll take another short break now. Join us in a few moments.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring. We believe in a new global vision, united in every broadcasting. We keep expanding our horizons and working on a closer and better communication. Now, in Grenada, Telesur, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. In El Salvador, the Farabundo Marte National Liberation Front is hoping to secure an election victory. Presidential candidate Hugo Martinez has just hit the campaign trail. Our correspondent has the details.
Efectivamente, el candidato a la presidencia por el...
Martinez listened to the concerns of the people when he visited various municipalities. He was accompanied by his vice presidential running mate, Karina Sosa. The elections will take place next February. The party will officially present its candidates on its September convention. We go back to you.
Vanessa Avalos reporting there. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has offered any necessary support to push forward a peace deal between Colombia and the ELN. Sanchez was in Bogota meeting with President Iván Duque. Sanchez is on a four-nation trip that began on Monday in Chile. The other topics on his agenda with Duque were the economy and trade.
Así es, compañeros, ya está todo listo para la visita del presidente del gobierno español.
Everything's ready for the visit of Spain's president to Costa Rica's foreign ministry. The flags of both countries have been raised, and soon a red carpet will be placed to receive Pedro Sanchez. He will meet with President Carlos Alvarado to talk about bilateral cooperation topics, such as environmental issues. They will also give a conference on climate change and how to deal with the changes that will occur all around the world in the coming years and decades. This will happen in the presidential palace on Friday morning, in front of high-ranking officials related to environmental issues. The discussions on bilateral topics between both countries will happen behind closed doors.
Okay, let's move to some news further afield now. According to national estimates, 27% of Spain's population is living below the poverty line. Infrequent work and low wages have created a new wave of working poor.
The current minimum wage does not guarantee a decent quality of life for workers. The number of people living in poverty increased significantly in the past 5 years. This is according to the latest Eurostat report.
3 out of 10 who are jobless are foreigners. It is young people and women who have been hit the hardest by unemployment.
The representing unions say workers' rights are not being protected.
Workers are each time less protected. In Spain, our employment mechanisms are obsolete, which is a clear cause for this crisis. It is true that we have more workplaces, but the system is obsolete and weak.
There is only talk about economic recovery. However, there's no end to the crisis in sight.
There has been a recovery, but it hasn't affected the people living in extreme poverty and hasn't allowed us to reduce inequality. It actually keeps growing. We already reached the highest levels in this crisis, a 6.6 gap between the richest and the poorest. This number is way lower in the EU.
Workers have lost their purchasing power.
We have inflation rates that are turning salaries useless. Last year, the salary increase was 0.1% higher than inflation, but this year we have 2% more inflation, which means that workers have lost 2.2% of their salaries during this year alone.
And labour unions believe the solution lies in supporting stable contracts, salaries, and bringing back social welfare that was lost during the crisis.
Thousands turned out in Detroit on Thursday night for an Aretha Franklin tribute concert. More than 40 artists performed some of her greatest hits 2 weeks after her death. The US music icon died of cancer on August 16th at the age of 76. We've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Omoli and thank you again for watching.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch,